Hey everyone, welcome to our content drop. Today with us, we have Nick and Nathan from the Career Center going to talk to us about careers in health and medical and some resources you can have to access them and a whole bunch of other awesome things. I'm going to hand it off to them to get us started.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks so much, Wendy and Beep for having us. We love to kind of support in this way. And hopefully, students, you find this information to be really valuable and helps you to kind of figure out a lot of the different types of opportunities that are in healthcare that are way beyond just nursing and doctor, which we typically think about. And so, again, it's going to be a lot of information. And just know that there's always going to be resources and support out there for you as you begin this journey of exploration and figuring out what's a good expression of support and helping your community for you. And this is just to get that ball rolling. So I'm going to do a quick little screen share and just kind of walk through some content and show you some resources and things that we have for you all and just get the ball rolling. All right, all right. So like we talked about, healthcare and medical careers kind of offered out by the BEEP student organization here at CU Denver. And so initially kind of the first thing that we wanted to jump into is I wanted to be able to show you all some different resources and information that we have for you. We do have a supplemental resource out there for you all that we'll send out and we'll give to the BEEP community so they can share with you all. Has amazing links, amazing questions, a lot of information that just correlates and relates to this whole conversation and trying to figure it all out. And so ultimately, I figured I'd go ahead and pop that bad boy up and show you all what it looks like. And so ultimately, let's see, the first thing that I wanted to show you all is this screen here. So hopefully you all are seeing the My Next Move. Essentially, My Next Move is a really neat website where you can be able to figure out more about different types of careers. And so there's a lot of those healthcare careers out there. And so My Next Move is a great starting point to just say, what does it mean to be a registered nurse? What does it mean to be a bioengineer? What does it really mean to be within these fields? And so you can see all these different search filters, whether it be through keyword search, certain industries, or even things that you would like to learn more about. And what's really nice is if you browse under industry here, you can find an entire section that's devoted to healthcare and counseling. So there's a whole health and counseling grouping of different professions right there. So all you got to do is find that industry, find that grouping, select browse, and now you can look at all of these different opportunities, all these different types of jobs that you can find, again, within healthcare or even to relate to counseling and mental health services also. So one of the ideas is that if you find something that you are maybe interested in, of, hey, dentist, like I'm really interested in learn a little bit more about a dentist and what they do or how you get to that particular field. You can always select on that particular occupation. And what's really valuable is you can see a brief video up here. So you could watch about a 2 to 5 minute video that just gives a little information, a little introduction to what it means to be a dentist and what they do and their education and their tasks, some things related to what it looks like to be within a day in the life of a dentist. You can also see over here, here's a whole section about knowledge. So it gives you a brief understanding of like, well, if you want to be a dentist, these are the things that you'll have to learn about. So are these things that are exciting to you? Are these things that are neat to you? Are these subject areas that you want to learn about or that you're also very skilled in or competent with? Similarly, too, we see a whole skills section related to what are the types of skills that dentists have and being able to say, are these skills that you would want to develop? Are these skills that you're interested in developing? Are these skills that maybe you even currently possess and want to develop or apply in this specific area? Thirdly, you have the ability. So being able to make a look and be able to say, okay, well, do I have these abilities? Because this is something that's really important. We want to be able to talk about not are we interested, not are we good at it, but also talking about, can I do it? You know, do I have the physical ability, the mental ability, and some of these other things we see in regards to abilities that relate to being successful as a dentist? Similarly, you can find things related to personality, different types of personalities you find within the field, technology and how that relates. Similarly, too, you can find out the level of education. So the more little caps or mortars that you find, the higher level of education a certain occupation would be. Dentists are a doctoral degree, so that is very similar to like a medical doctor or doctor of osteopathy or anything of that nature. So it's a pretty significant amount of training and education, but for good reason, because we want to make sure that when we're providing dental care to our community, it's of the utmost value and impact and understanding really the depth of work that they do. You can find the job outlook information. So kind of talking about how much money do these individuals make to help you kind of figure out what type of style of life or income potential are you hoping for. And then also another area that's really valuable is you can find this explore other careers too. So again, really, really neat if you're saying, well, dentist is neat, but I just don't know if I want to go through a doctoral degree and that level of training or experience. All right, well, maybe we look into something else in here, and these could really help to, again, be another expression of you wanting to help and wanting to impact the community, but maybe just doing it in a way that feels comfortable to you and relates to your values and your goals. So I definitely say take a look into My Next Move, really, really valuable. Again, a lot of great content that you can see here to just give you a quick understanding of what are these fields so that you can begin that exploration and move a little bit further. The other thing that I wanted to show you all really quickly as well is that when we get into things like medicine or healthcare, there are a tremendous amount of specialties. So this link here, and again, I have this on our resource page, we'll share with you all. This is a link of all the different types of specialties that are out there. So you can see them all listed alphabetically, or you can even quickly go through specific groups. You can even look at like a specialty path. So being able to see, okay, if I want to go into anesthesiology, what's kind of that path, or what are some of those options, specialties within that set of medicine, being anesthesiology. Whereas the specialty listing is just the A through Z listing of these different specialties. So you can see things like, child abuse or clinical neuropsychology, physiology, dermatology, and knowing that these different subsets are really where it can get kind of complex within healthcare, because it's just different ailments, different disorders, different needs, different populations, different specialties or focus. And again, it can get a little overwhelming. So this is a great resource for you all to leverage and utilize just to understand what are all these different types of doctors, types of nurses, types of anesthesiologists, and things of that nature. So that, again, you can understand the variances to the healthcare field and begin to, again, explore and learn more about yourself in relation to those. And so to complement all of this information as well, I was talking about this health resource page that we developed. This is essentially that resource page that you should all be seeing here. And I think what's really valuable is we do give you all a few questions to kind of think through to help you process, what type of career in healthcare am I interested in? Something that's really valuable that I really like on here is, would I rather work with my hands or work with my brain? Because something like our nurses or even something like our bioengineers a lot of times are doing things with their hands. They're actively participating within the role. However, you have a lot of people within diagnostics or medicine or research that really focus on their brain and really kind of figure things out and problem solve. So these questions are just ways to help you process and kind of learn a little bit more about yourself in relation to potential directions or how long you want to invest in your education and training, what types of environments you want to be in. And I think it's really important to know that, doctors and nurses are commonly what we think of in healthcare, but also, hospitals need healthcare administrators, they need computer programmers, they need accountants and marketers. So knowing that if you are not necessarily an individual that is skilled in biology or chemistry or not necessarily interested in the subject areas, but you want to work in healthcare, there can be other avenues to that as well. This section is all about some important things to consider when you're deciding on a career in healthcare. Again, things relating to engagement and interests and level of education and training. We have this resources to help you get involved. And so essentially here's that link to My Next Move. Here's that link to those specialties. And then also too, knowing that there is a huge, huge, huge grouping of YouTube videos out there where you can actually shadow different opportunities, shadow different medical careers or any career for that matter through these YouTube channels. There's an entire channel that's actually called Job Shadowing. That's the name of the channel. And you can find a lot of awesome videos there if you aren't quite ready to engage in an in-person shadowing opportunity at a hospital or within a healthcare setting. The last section here is just about getting involved. And so these are some direct links to different types of volunteer, job shadowing, or even to kind of intensive training programs. So every major hospital in any kind of county or city in the Denver metro area has entire departments devoted to volunteering and job shadowing, as well as things like, internships or high school partnerships, things like that. These links that you see here are just some of the more well-known ones, more robust ones. Again, there's a lot of high school age student intensive programs. There's a lot of college age students or early college students, so like 18 to 20-year-old college student programs as well. So we really would say the best way to learn more about a healthcare field, let's gather some quick information from what I just shared with you, and then let's take it a step further and start talking with people, start engaging in the community, start shadowing or participating in these volunteer and shadowing opportunities, because the more we place ourselves in environments, the more we kind of learn about what we want to do and how we can kind of navigate and hone and direct ourselves into a career that is meaningful and representative of who we are in the work that we want to do. And I think that's something that's really important to know. We'll talk more about this as well, but just know that you don't need to try to figure this out right now. You don't need to say, hey, before I start college, I need to know the exact career title, the exact position in healthcare that I'm looking for. But just know that it takes discovery and figuring things out, and that you have an entire support network here to help you with that. A lot of these resources and engagement and experiences like shadowing or getting hands-on experience, all of that will help you to figure this out and refine where you want to go, refine that career goal of where you want to go and how you want to impact the community. So again, don't feel like you need to figure it out. There's a lot to help you along that process. All right, great. So I'm going to just jump back into our slides and move through some additional information as it relates to different types of health careers, different levels of education, and things of that nature. So I'll pass it on to my colleague, Nathan.
Perfect. Thank you, Nick. That was fantastic. So, as Nick mentioned, right, we want to talk a lot about exploration at this point, thinking about what it is to be in the healthcare industry. And as he's touched on touched on very well, is the idea that there's no one pathway into the healthcare kind of world, right? This is a massive industry that requires a lot of different people to make it function at a high level. And it's a very important level. And so if that is an interest of yours, there's many different routes that can be taken. And though that can feel overwhelming, and rightfully so, there's a lot to learn. Again, it's not something that you have to know right out the bat of like, this is what I need to do and this is the only pathway forward. A lot of times when we think about healthcare, I think some of the times we think about professions only in the level of maybe physicians, dentists, as we mentioned. But there is so many other channels that can kind of help you work within the healthcare industry. And with that, right, it's worth kind of starting that search process into what kind of educational requirements are really going to be asked of me as I move forward. To be a physician, there is quite the process, quite the journey from an academic standpoint, right, to get to that level of being a physician. And you're going to spend a lot of time in the classroom doing a lot of different things. As Nick mentioned, there's a lot of specialty areas that you'll be focusing in on as well. And that's great. That's a great route for many people. But again, it's not the only route. So we broke it down a little bit into this idea that this list is by no means exhaustive that you see on the screen here. This could go on almost literally forever. So, hold tight and don't get overwhelmed that these are the only options available to you, because they're not. But we want to kind of highlight the idea that there's a lot of different routes to go, whether that's, graduating high school and jumping right into the career field, which is absolutely an opportunity with a lot of different roles like home health aides, medical secretaries, medical assistants, those areas as well. If you're thinking about maybe more of an associate's degree plan, there's also a lot of different opportunities there, including LPNs, which also comes along with a certification, phlebotomists, other areas that may be of interest to you that traditional path through the undergrad and maybe master's, doctorate level programs isn't for you. That is a-okay. There's all kinds of opportunities that will still be available. More on the bachelor side, still ones that after maybe a more traditional 4-year track puts you in a position to really make a difference, including maybe a biomedical engineering position, information technologist. I love that Nick kind of touched on this idea that when we think about healthcare industry, right, a lot of times we do think about these sort of roles that work within maybe hospitals, clinical settings, doctors, health aides, but there's all sort of areas. IT is a big one. In order for a healthcare system to run properly, information technology, IT is going to be a major part of that. Legal, right, from a a legal side of things, that's going to be influenced. And so there's really no path that you could take that wouldn't have some adjacent connection to healthcare. But again, thinking about that educational route, I think, is extremely important. And of course, master's degree or higher, that doctoral level, if you are thinking about that physician route or physical therapist, all kinds of different routes, maybe more of an academic role. Again, those are opportunities available to you. And you don't have to make that decision right now. You don't have to commit to being on the doctoral path from day one. That can change, that can adapt. But we just want to, again, put this out there so you start thinking about what sort of commitment do you want to make early on into your kind of educational investment as it relates to future careers as well. Another thing I will mention just to consider is a lot of these come with certifications and other licensures as well. So just the educational component isn't always what's necessary to work in the field. And so a lot of these prepare you for that, make you eligible for those areas like nursing, for example, but there's still, some licensure that can depend on kind of federal and state laws, federal and state licensure requirements. And so lots of things to consider. And again, our point here is not to overwhelm, but to start that exploration process. If you really love school and you find yourself that you want to take on more from an educational standpoint, great. You can know what is going to be kind of required of you as you kind of progress through those career exploration moments. And again, just something that's a good thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind as you kind of think about future careers, and use My Next Move and look into those resources that we talked about as you kind of explore those areas. Moving to the next slide, one of the things that we love to do is kind of see what these career paths look like in a little bit more of a microcosm, right? So again, there's so many different career paths, and there's going to be different levels of career pathing for every role that's out there. I personally got to work with a lot of nurses in my life, in my past roles, and love working with nurses. Amazing opportunity in healthcare, something that's very much needed. But what we saw a lot of times is there's different pathways for a lot of different students. And so one example of that, right, might be a nurse who graduates high school, applies for a bachelor's program or maybe even an associate's program that allows them to become a registered nurse, right? Once they graduate, again, there's that certification process. So you have to pass what they call the NCLEX, which is a national exam. You become certified, and then you seek out career opportunities. And again, we might think about this in the step of, you've gone through the educational approach, you've found that certification, now you're in that career pathway, but your journey might not be done at that point. Maybe you love being a nurse and that's exactly where you want to be, and you get to work in that for the rest of your kind of career. That's fantastic. But for many people, they might think about maybe doing a master's program or extending that career in nursing to something more later on down the road, maybe 10, 15 years after graduating their bachelor's degree. And that's where you might see that master's level or higher education level come into play as well. In this case, maybe a family nurse practitioner role, in which you have a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more autonomy, great. Then you go back to school for a master's degree program. You could do a little bit more additional licensure and kind of qualifications. And then again, you're working again in that field. And so the idea here is this pathway doesn't have to be a fixed. The timeline can stretch, it can squeeze. There is room for adaptation and evolving in the role itself, but there's really no I would say the best process of kind of thinking about your career pathway is through that exploration of seeing what's to come, of knowing that things will change and things can adapt, but kind of jumping in and at least kind of starting to picture what you want from that experience to kind of, again, kind of tap into the resources that are out there. And again, there's a lot. So again, just one kind of sample area. Another area, if we jump to the next slide, that we know some people might be really interesting is something like bioengineering. Something that is, again, kind of a combination of that healthcare industry, that biology industry with, that engineering component, which we know a lot of students are very interested in. And again, there's no one pathway as a bioengineer into one field or one role or responsibility. As you see here, there's all kinds of different paths, including academia, right? Maybe that biomedical side of things is something that you want to explore more from a research component, working in labs and supporting maybe universities and institutions on their research models. Fantastic. Again, what's that school requirement? Likely going to be a master's or a PhD, but again, that can change and that can adapt. And so if you're really interested in academia, start kind of, again, engaging with some of those resources, start looking into those volunteer opportunities, start thinking about clubs and organizations that you can become involved with in your own academic work. If industry is a little bit more for you, you're thinking about working, in industry for companies, there's all sort of different roles that you can exist within. Biotech is obviously a really, popular one right now, but there's also biomedical engineering, again, software development, there's biomedical device sales, all sort of different ways to kind of, if this is an interest of yours, tap into some of those interests, tap into those passions and utilize it in the industry. And again, that can really evolve from, a bachelor's level degree or even, an associate's level degree all the way to a PhD. And so again, there's a lot of flexibility there depending on what your academic aspirations are. Clinical medicine, again, we touched on a lot of these areas, working in that kind of clinical setting, maybe working in a surgery setting, a rehab setting, in a hospital. Those are very much needed here as well. Again, lots of variety in what those roles can, entail. And so you're going to see a lot of differences as it relates to academic requirements, licensure, those areas as well, but lots of opportunities. And then even something like government and policy. You may not think of bioengineering as government and policy, but there's absolutely roles in, both state, local, federal governments that are available as you advise, as you talk through what the bio kind of engineering field is going to look like from a, regulatory standpoint, all the way through kind of, shaping and changing how that field's going to be really adapted to future events, future kind of cultural and societal norms, and that's changing rapidly. So lots of exciting opportunities there. So again, lots of different things you can do. Kind of in that same vein with the bioengineering theme, we put together kind of an example of a couple different pathways as a bioengineering career. And this again is meant to kind of elaborate that idea that there's no fixed path. There's two kind of outlined here. There could be 50. So don't take these as the only two. But maybe you're interested in the biomedical engineering field, and you decide to go maybe in kind of that route right out of school. Great, that's a passion of yours. Hopefully you've done that exploration. And that pathway, again, is going to kind of teach you a little bit more of that foundational engineering coursework, not as much on the traditional engineering side, but a little bit more biology related. Maybe that's your passion. Great. You come out with a stronger kind of ability to synthesize information, maybe create and market new products. Fantastic. There's a little bit more focus on that area. Vice versa, if you're thinking engineering is something exciting to you and you may have a kind of, again, adjacent interest in healthcare, but you're not sure yet if that's what you want to do, it's okay to maybe traditionally apply for more traditional engineering pathways, learn about those different areas, again, come away with a strong education from an engineering standpoint, but again, utilize that in the industry from a healthcare or biomedical standpoint. So again, don't feel like, again, there's only one pathway. Don't feel like you're pushed into one area that you have to do this. We see a lot of biomedical engineers come out of school, their undergrad with biology majors as well. So that's a pathway that we see quite often if that's really of interest to you. But again, there's this large spectrum of science and engineering and business and legal and state that we're going to find. And as you progress through this exploration, hopefully some of that narrows that pathway for you and gives you a little bit more clarity. And again, you're never going to have a perfect sense of what the pathway ahead is for you. And that's totally fine. I think we're all in that stage. But the more you explore, the more you engage with this process, the more likely you're going to find kind of that pathway that fits your needs, your desires, and lead to a really successful and really rewarding career in the field. So just something to consider there. Some of the ways to kind of start, on that process is just prepare for that future career. And that doesn't mean, again, mapping out everything, but it can be simple things, job shadowing, as Nick mentioned. We live in the time of YouTube, which we love. There are no shortage of videos about what a bioengineer does, what an accountant does for a hospital, what a medical assistant does. All sorts of resources out there to kind of tap into. And YouTube's a great place to get started, but there's also all kinds of different resources from your academic standpoint as well. High school and college age kind of student programs. I'm guarantee if you haven't found those yet, they're out there. Search for them, find them. They can be incredibly resourceful and useful in your kind of in your exploration as we talk about. The resources page that we're providing today, I think, is a great starting point for a lot of that. And again, a lot of resources. My Next Move, as we talk about, is a great resource for that. So again, no shortage, but I think the first step that we always want students to take is, take that first step. If it's YouTube, if it's a resource page, if it's asking a friend who works in the industry about it, take that first step, start to gather that information so that you can make the best choices. Similarly, informational interviews are fantastic ways to really get the inside track on what a career looks like on a day-to-day basis. This is really reaching out to people who work in the industry, work in a role that maybe is of interest to you. And they're really just more of, think of them as a 20-minute kind of career research conversation. Almost in a way where you get to interview them, right? What do you like about your job? What do you not? What do you do on a daily basis? What was their background? What was their pathway? What is their suggestions for your own career goals and your own career research? So an amazing way to engage and learn is not only from the many resources online, but from people, right? We still want to have that interaction, and informational interviews in your network is a great way to start that, and can be an incredibly successful way of beginning that nurturing process of getting to know people in the field that can serve you down the road by building that network. And it really starts with, again, just taking that first step, doing some research, reaching out and saying, hey, I'm curious, and seeing what comes back. The one thing I like to say about informational interviews is people love to talk about themselves and what they do, especially when they love what they do. And so if you're nervous about asking for those, don't be. The majority of the time, people are more than happy to talk about their career pathway, what got them to where they are, what's helped them in their journey. And people truly do love to kind of help others along in that journey as well. So lots of great resources. Again, take that first step. That will lead to a second step, a third step, and you'll start to kind of, again, define that career pathway for yourself in this industry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Nathan, didn't mean to cut you off there. I wanted to also interject in that way, because you're absolutely right. Like, this is where it's just gathering info. No need to be intimidated or scared. Really, what you're looking to do is to build on this interest, build on this excitement, build on this inquisitive nature of, like, I want to learn more. I'm interested in figuring this out. I'm interested in diving deeper and having that conversation with an individual about the work they do, because, I think it's all about that tiered approach of just feeding that need for wanting to learn more. All right, I checked out this YouTube video. All right, cool, I'm volunteering. All right, now I get to talk to a doctor and actually do this informational interview thing with professionals that I'm interested in their type of work. And it's really about just feeding that interest in that engagement for you of, I just want to learn more. And that's really all that we're saying with this piece of shadowing and informational interviews, is it's just learning more and getting real deep into those fields and reflecting about that as well.
I love that. Yeah, feed your interest. That is a great line to take away, right? If you're interested in something, feed that curiosity as much as possible. And what results in that, again, is just information. And what does that information provide you with? It just helps you kind of make the best choices for yourself as you move forward. And that's what we're here to do, is help you gather that information and make the best choices for yourself. So great point. Thanks, Nick, for jumping in there. One of the things Nick mentioned was volunteering. An absolutely great way to get involved and start that process, right? There's, of course, the benefits to the organization that you get to volunteer with. And that's number one, right? If you get to volunteer in the healthcare industry or in some format, you're helping others, which is a great place to start. But it's also a ton of benefits that provide you with kind of, again, more information, more knowledge about what you might want to do moving forward. And so it connects you with others. It's a great way to get connected and have informational interviews with people in the industry. Again, pick their brain, be curious. It increases those social and professional skills, right? Getting used to working with those professionals in those settings, right? Do you want to work with people on a day-to-day basis where you're working with a lot of people? Do you want to work more autonomously on your own? This is going to help you kind of, again, kind of peel away a little bit at that, what your kind of instinct, what your curiosity level is around it, and help you kind of define that career role. It does provide career experience, right? It's something that can go on your resume. It's something that you can talk about in interviews about those experiences. So that's a great way to talk about it as well. And again, it's teaching you skills. It's creating opportunities for you to flex a lot of those skill sets that are needed in the healthcare industry, including communication and working in teams and technical skills, I'm sure, as well. So lots to do, lots of ways to get started. Again, first is just thinking about what you want to do and where you want to jump in. And it is about taking that first step. If you're not certain, again, look at interests and hobbies. When you check out YouTube, if you find yourself watching video after video after video of certain areas, that's probably a good sign that you're on the right pathway. So a lot of ways to get started. There's no wrong way, in my opinion, other than just not doing anything. So if you're doing anything, you're off to a good start, but tons of opportunities when it comes to volunteer and community engagement.
Yeah. And we really say, get yourself involved, engage in the volunteering, the shadowing, the classes, the videos. Really, if you look in the bottom left, you kind of see the cycle of explore, experiment, and evaluate. And this is really kind of the cycle of how we hone our career goal, or how we refine our career goal and what it is that we want to do. And the more that you can explore now, right? Watch these videos, look and read that information on My Next Move, maybe even do some of the interest assessments that you can find on My Next Move. There are tools on that site that can also ask you questions to help help you pinpoint interests and skills and how those relate to certain types of careers. And so ultimately the idea is that we explore, we come up with ideas, we try to figure things out. Ooh, you know what? I'm really interested. Let's see what a pediatric nurse is really like. And so then we go into experimentation where we could volunteer, we could job shadow, we could informational interview pediatric nurses. And through those experimentations and that experience itself, we can then go around to evaluate to say, yeah, you know what, that is interesting to me for these reasons. Or maybe it's, you know what, no, that's not exactly what I want to do for these reasons. And then that leads us back into exploration and knowing that we talked about it earlier, you don't need to know the end goal before you begin college, but just know that this kind of cycle, the more classes and volunteering and internships and job shadowing, all these experimentations that we can take on will help us to refine that career goal. And like Nathan had mentioned, all of these awesome experimentations, all these awesome experiences, go on your resume, and that will definitely support you when you need to apply to maybe a nursing program or even a bachelor's program. They absolutely are going to help you if you want to apply to a bioengineering master's program or a medical doctor, an MD physician program. They all require those levels of experiences. And when you can show you've started it early and you've refined that goal and you've gone through a lot, and you've connected with these people, got great references and things, it'll ultimately really just help you all along the way. And just know that it's not about achieving all these goals, but it's about going through this process and figuring it out. And it's okay to not know, and it's okay to feel lost and confused. We all do. And the best we can ever do is just engage in exploration, engage in an experimentation, and then honestly reflect about that experience to say, what do we learn from it and where do we go from here?
I love it. I love it. I'll reiterate that. You'll notice it is a circular process, and it's a circular process for a reason, right? You're going to continue to do this throughout your entire academic and professional career. So there's no end to that exploration, that experimentation, and that evaluation. So continue to think about that process. And again, just to get started, volunteer and engagement is a good way to begin that circular process and start to define a little bit more of what those interests are for you. So great points, Nick. Finally, I think we had a couple. Oh, go ahead.
No, absolutely. You're all right.
We had a couple more kind of ways to find opportunities. So one of the first great ways to do it is just really creating kind of a volunteer resume. So if you don't have a resume on hand, that's okay, but start building that something out that you can hand over to people to say, hey, this is why I'm of interest there, and this is why I think I'd be a good fit to volunteer with your organization. Google, as always, is a great resource as well to find opportunities in your area, as well as volunteermatch.org. That's one of my favorites. I've used it, and it's been a great tool for me to find areas. And again, it'll match you with a lot of those interest levels that you have within your community and your surroundings. And then again, local community websites. If you know of places directly that you want to be involved with, reach out directly to the source. It's a great way to start that process. And again, if you're doing something that you're passionate about, you probably already have a couple of things in mind. Don't be afraid if you don't see volunteer opportunities readily available on a website, on a community board. So again, go directly to the source and say, hey, I want to get involved. How can I get involved? That's a great way to start that process as well. Again, positions through school and university clubs. One of the great thing about kind of the academic world as it stands is it is a community. It's a community of people that likely there's a lot of them that share your interests, that share your passions. And so there are clubs and organizations and professional development opportunities as it relates to your academic endeavors. And then again, just following up promptly with organizations after you've applied, after you've researched and done, and starting to make those connections, because beyond just, again, becoming engaged and experimenting, as we talked about in these areas, you're also creating a network. You're creating an opportunity to know people in the industry that do things of interest to yourself. And so by doing that, you're going to start to build a network, whether you kind of know it or not, of people that share those interests. And so stay in touch with them, follow up with them, remain in contact with them any way you can to kind of help that exploration and spur on that engagement that we talk about.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point, to talk about school or university clubs and associations. I mean, Nathan and I are here to support the BEEP student organization around bioengineering. You all have been connected to us because of this student club and organization. Right here, you're seeing like kind of how that networking happens. We've worked with BEEP before. They asked if we could support for here, and here we are. And clubs and groups are actually absolutely a great way to learn more of this information, integrate integrate into the community and just feel a part of something that is meaningful to you, being your career direction and interest in medicine overall. So don't undervalue those clubs. Those definitely are additional experimentations, just like jobs and internships and shadowing and volunteering and all of those pieces as well. And really the last thing that Nathan and I wanted to just share with you all is just to connect with your career services. You know, regardless of where you end up after graduation, after graduating high school, there are career services. So community colleges have career services. You know, any kind of 4-year university or general college has career services. Medical schools and medical programs have career services. Your high school guidance counselor, before you even graduate high school, can help you to think about these things. So really just know that it's really a lot of opportunity to connect and get the information that's out here for you all. And just know that we're here with you. Every level of career services or type is here with you to help go through this process and figure these things out and pose questions and connect you with opportunities and individuals, and that it's just a one step along the way type of process, and it can make a big, big difference. All right, Nathan, anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up here?
I think that was a great wrap up. Again, I think just whether you know it or not, there's all kinds of people ready to support you in this journey. So don't be afraid, again, to take that first step. And we hope that the resources we provided is a good kind of first step to help, again, pull at that thread and find out more about what that interest level is for you. And again, there's no wrong first step. Take that step, explore, evaluate, and you're going to put yourself in a really good position moving forward. But yeah, no, thanks so much for the time. Wendy, did you have any questions for us that we can kind of help answer?
Yeah, I did have one, which is going to be a nice big question for both of you. How did you guys find your paths to where you are now? What resources did you guys need to utilize to get here?
No, I love it, Wendy. I'm really happy that you opened that question up because, you know, for me, my experience definitely represents that explore, experiment, and evaluate cycle. For me, I always wanted to help people. I always wanted to work with individuals. I always wanted to communicate and connect on a one-on-one level. I got a bachelor's degree in psychology, and my goal was always to be a mental health therapist and counselor, maybe even substance abuse counselor with young adults and college-age students. And it was really through my own experience of an internship at a state mental health hospital, working in residential facilities and treatment facilities for those with significant behavioral and emotional challenges. And it was these different experiences, and even when I was in grad school getting my master's in counseling to be a therapist, it was those experiences and those experimentations that really helped me to say, wow, you know what? I don't know if I really want to work in this heavy mental health clinical realm around depression and anxiety and very significantly dark and heavy material. And so I evaluated to say, you know what? I really want to help people understand themselves, achieve their goals, and reach their potential, which really aligns well with career counseling. And it wasn't until, you know, when I was in grad school, halfway through my program, that I found out that this is a profession, like this is a thing to do. And it really was navigating with the theme of I want to help people, I want to make a difference. And that theme motivated me to try mental health counseling, therapy, substance abuse, residential work. And now I find that theme being expressed as a career counselor. And so it really is that explore, experiment, and evaluate that helped me get to where I am.
Is a great answer. It'll be tough to follow, but I'll do my best. I think a lot of mine also is around that exploration and analysis. I think for me, I came out of high school and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I really resonated with writing and reading and some of those patterns. And so I really I took a journey through undergrad and studied English and liberal arts. And wasn't sure what that was going to mean for me, but mine was kind of always following that interest level. And so after school, I actually worked in kind of the corporate world for a little while. And the thing that I realized through that was my interests were always aligned with kind of academia and understanding what a community is when it comes to learning and kind of flourishing in a learning environment. And I wanted others to have that experience that I had as well. And so my interest brought me back to this idea of what kind of environment do I want to be in and how do I flex those skills and interests in that environment. And so for me, working in a community setting was something so important. And at a university, that community setting is so geared towards the helping nature of others, as Nick mentioned. And I was always attracted to that. So again, I think beyond just kind of exploring and taking on different roles and taking on new opportunities, saying yes a lot, right? That's a big part of it, is taking on things, even if you're not sure of what that means for you or your career, will lead you back to a place of clarity at times of what do I want? What is it that I'm seeking out? And even beyond kind of that exploration and analysis, when in doubt, just think about what you're interested in. Whether that relates to healthcare or not, it will probably lead you towards a direction that can definitely be, again, connected to healthcare in some way or another.
Yeah, it's like Nate said, we find that theme, what motivates us, what engages us, because, the idea of what leads you to consider medicine or healthcare is a part of that theme. And there can be, again, different expressions like I was talking about with my own background that represent that theme. And so anytime we can experiment and explore and engage with that theme, it will always help us to refine and feel more comfortable about where we're going and what we're doing. And I think, again, always coming back to that principle that, yeah, it's okay to feel lost. It's okay to feel confused. Even for Nathan and I, where we are in our careers, there are moments where we even say, well, what is that next step? What is that next challenge for us as well? So that cycle of development isn't something that you just go through where you are right now. It's something you'll go through your entire careers to be able to find that meaningful and engaging work. And I think it's, again, just knowing that, yeah, it's the future. We can't ever predict it. We don't know for certain. All we can do is just make informed decisions, gather that data from the experience, and really refine and go from there. And so, again, okay to feel lost and confused. We all do.
That was both lovely stories of your paths. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who is watching this, everyone who participated in this, talking to you, Nick and Nathan, for putting this lovely presentation together and all these amazing resources that I didn't even know about. And that I'm probably going to look into using.